Yes, friends, welcome back. I am Sunil Desai, and you are watching Galaxy Online Learning powered by Galaxy Tutorials. Today we are studying history, chapter number 3, the making of a global world. In the last lecture, the second lecture of this chapter, the making of a global world, we saw how there was a drastic change actually on a large scale world in the world society in the 19th century, that is from 1815 to 1940, how the world changed profoundly. Okay, that's what we saw. Now we are in this third lecture, okay, and we will see the third unit of this chapter, that is the inter-war economy. Okay, as you know, the First World War was mainly fought in Europe, but that was fought between 19 in the year 1914, and it lasted for 4 years, ended in 1918. Okay, it was mainly fought in Europe, but its effect were felt worldwide. Okay, so and it took a long, nearly 3 decades for the recovery to come out of the consequences which the world had faced because of this World War. Now, this World War, the First World War, was fought between two powerful power blocks. The Allies were the countries Britain, France, and Russia. US joined in the Allied group at a later time. Okay, but it was mainly started by Britain, France, and Russia, and the Americans joined them at a later time. And the other power bloc, okay, the other power bloc, the opposite side, the central powers were Germany, Austria, Hungary, and the Ottoman Turkey. Both these sides were powerful industrial powers of that time. Okay, so when the war began, the war began somewhere in August of 1914, and no political leader thought that it will be on such a large scale. Okay, they thought that this war will end within 3 to 4 months, but actually, this war lasted for 4 years, and it ended only in 1980. Okay, and this war, the First World War, was not like any other war which the people had seen before. This was fought between industrial powers, so many technologically advanced fighting took place. For the first time in the war, machine guns were used, tanks were used, aeroplanes were used. Okay. People, young men were recruited from all over the world, okay, and they were taken to the front line to fight, and they were carried away in big ships, trains. So technology played a very big role in this war, in the First World War. Okay, see, the, the extent of this war was such big that nearly, see, the scale of the death and destruction was that nearly 9 million people lost their lives. 9 million soldiers, young soldiers. Okay, they lost their lives, and 20 million people were maimed. Okay, so in all together, somewhere around 29 million young people, I'm talking about young people, they suffered because of this First World War. Okay, now since the of the 29 million people, as they were all young, the working force, they were on the working age group. Okay, they were from the working age group, this 29 million people. So there was a shortage of young working people in the factories, right? So as there was shortage of young, there was no one from the house to work in the factories. Okay, so household income declined in the war because all the young workers they had gone to fight in the war. Okay, young people had gone to fight in the war, so there was no one to work in the factories. So naturally, the household incomes had declined during the war. During the war, second thing what happened was the industries were restructured. Goods which were needed for the war were started with manufactured everywhere. Ammunition were manufactured, ammunition, then clothes, all these things, whatever was necessary for the war. Okay, those goods were being manufactured in the industries. And as men went to battle, women took their place in the industry. Okay, and they previously the men used to do that. Now women took their places. Okay. The war also led to snapping ties between links between now. They were in the opposite group. The English, the Britain, France were against the Germans, Austrians. So the ties, the economic links were snapped. Okay. Britain borrowed large number of money from US banks and US citizens to finance the war. So the war became, so what happened was that America became an international creditor. First it was international debtor, means Americans used to get capital from other countries. Now Americans started giving capital, investing capital, money into other countries. Now they became international creditors. Okay. So at the war's end, the US and its citizens now owned more overseas than foreign organizations, foreign governments and citizens owned in the US. Because now the US government, the US citizens had given so much of capital to countries outside America. Now their amount of owning was more overseas compared to the outside governments owning properties in America. So this is the opposite had happened. After the war, recovery was very difficult. Before war, Britain since because of its industrial revolution was leading in economy. Okay, but during the war, as Britain was occupied with war, industrial development took place in India and Japan. And after war, Britain could not again recapture its dominance over the industries in India. At the same time, it started finding it difficult to compete with the Japanese products in the international market. Okay. Second thing was that to finance the expenditures which was occurring in the war, Britain had taken large amounts of capital money from the US. So after the war, Britain came under huge debts. Okay, huge external debts were there on Britain. During the war, there was certain economic boom because the war was fought on such a large scale and it needed so many people, it needed a lot of food, it needed a lot of clothes, it needed a lot of shoes for the soldiers, it needed a lot of ammunition. So everything was done to give it to the soldiers to fight the army. Everything was done, the production was done, the food was produced for basically for whom? For the army. So there was a type of a boom. Everyone was working. Okay, the factories were producing for the soldiers, for the war. Okay, food was being produced, wheat was being grown. Okay, everywhere in the world. Why? To give it to the soldiers. So there was a economic boom. But when the war ended, what happened? All this production stopped, and as a result, the economy came down. The government also was spending a lot on the war. Now its expenditure on the war had come down. So naturally, many people lost their job because the factories now the production in the factories came down. Okay, many had to leave their jobs. So in 1921, out of five British workers, one worker had to go home. One worker became unemployed. Okay, that was the post-war scenario. Similarly, in the agriculture front, again there was a crisis. Before the war, East Europe was leading in production of wheat, but because of the war, there was disruption in production of wheat in Eastern Europe. As a result, what happened? America, Australia, Canada, Russia, they started producing wheat on a very large scale. They cleared the area, they expanded production of wheat. But when the war was over, East Europe again started producing wheat. And as a result, what happened? There was now no demand. The demand, no demand because supply had increased. East Europe again producing wheat, Canada producing on a large scale, America producing on a large scale, Australia producing on a large scale, Russia producing. So the amount of supply in the market of wheat was much higher compared to the demand. As a result, what happened? The price of the grain came down, and as the price of the grain came down, the farmers could not get enough of return. They could not get enough money back. What they had spent in growing that wheat. Okay. Now what the farmer did? Suppose now if they are by selling 100 quintals of wheat, they are getting a fixed amount. Okay. So they were happy with that amount. But now after selling 100 quintals of wheat, because there was no demand, they were not getting the money which they expected and which they were getting before. So what they did, instead of 100 quintals, they started producing 150 quintals so that they could get that much of money. Now what did happen because of it? The supply again increased, and as the supply there was no demand, so the prices went still low. Okay, a glut came. Okay, the prices went down. Okay. Now this is what happened, means how the industry suffered and how the agriculture crisis deepened after the war. That's what we see. Now let us see a new practice came into the industries after the war on a large scale, and that practice is called the rise of mass production and consumption. Mass production means producing on a very large scale. Okay, the US in the US recovery was quicker. That was basically because of this mass production. Okay. See, after a short period of economic trouble, in the years after the war, the US economy resumed its strong growth in the early 1920s. Now, how did it do that? One important feature of the US economy of the 1920s was mass production, producing on a very large amount. See, people were moving towards mass production by the end of the 19th century. They were moving, but the 20th century really saw the 20th century industrial production is really characterized by this mass production. And who was the pioneer of this mass production? It was the car manufacturer Henry Ford. Okay, what he did was that he adapted the assembly line of the Chicago slaughterhouse. In the Chicago slaughterhouse, what was done was that the cattle used to go on a conveyor belt and the butchers used to cut a part of an organ of the cattle, each butcher cutting only the same part. No one cutting the whole or slaughtering the whole animal at a time. Each butcher, it was going on a conveyor belt, moving on a conveyor belt, and the butcher is standing, is cutting a particular part of that, and the body of the cattle is moving ahead. There another part is cut. So that way it was happening in that slaughterhouse. And what Henry Ford thought that if I use this, if I adapt this conveyor, this facility, okay, of the conveyor belt in mass production, the production of cars will be faster. Okay, so he realized that the assembly line method would allow a faster and cheaper way of producing vehicles. Okay, so what were the workers had to do now? The worker had to do repeatedly a same thing. The same work he has to do. Means suppose he has to fix a part in that car. The car is coming on the part of the car is coming on the conveyor belt on the assembly line. He has to just fix a part of it. Then it will move ahead. Okay. Then another part will come. He has to fix that again to that part, the same part. So he is repeatedly doing the same thing again and again and again. So what happens is that he has to do only that work, so he can save a lot of time on that. Second thing is that second thing was that the conveyor belt is moving at a fixed speed, so he has to finish that work in that particular time. Okay, so now this worker didn't have time to relax because the conveyor is already automatically moving. He can't stop the conveyor. Previously, he could go out for tea, he could go out for washroom, he could chat with his workmates, but now nothing because the conveyor belt is moving and moving. He can't stop the conveyor belt. So, the conveyor belt is going to stop in front of him for a particular time. In that particular time, he has to fit that particular part of that motor, of that car in that place. Okay, so there was no time for him, so he has to be very, very active, very alert. Okay, so it was very difficult for the old workers to do this. So many of them, in distress, they left the job, they quit the job. Now, Ford had a problem. So what he did, because workers were leaving, quitting the job, because they could not cope with the conveyor belt, with this modern assembly line, okay, assembly line production. So they quit. So Henry Ford, in desperation, what he did, he doubled the wages of the workers. He said, I'll double the wages of the worker. Now since they are going to get double the wages, now they will be getting $5 instead of 2.5. So naturally, workers saying that they were going to get real good money, they stopped. They stopped quitting the job. People who had quit, or new people started coming to take a job in the factory. What Ford did, he speeded up his assembly line. Okay, now I have doubled this income, your wage has been doubled, now you have to work really hard. Okay, so the workers had to, if they want more money, now they had to work very hard. So in fact what happened was that where he was making 100 cars, instead of 100 cars, now he started making 300 cars or 250 cars. Okay, in the same time. Suppose in a particular time he is making 100 cars, now to prepare in that particular time, now he is manufacturing how many? More than 200 cars. Okay, so that was in fact a benefit for Ford. So in fact that's what Ford said. What Ford said was that increasing the wages was the best cost cutting decision. See now what he says. He has increased the wages, that means he has increased the amount of inputs. Wage is an input in a production, right? So he has increased the wage, that means he is putting more money in the production. But he is getting more than what as a output, means he has doubled the wage, but he is getting 3 times the production. So that way he has saved, right? You get it? So he has saved. That's why he says that best that was increasing the wages, doubling the wages of the workers was the best cost-cutting decision he had ever made. Now, this practice of Henry Ford was now accepted by many industrialists in Europe. Okay, many industrialists in America had already adopted it. When Ford became successful, other industrialists in America, they accepted it and they also became successful. So even in Europe, the industrialists, they also started producing on a mass scale, on a large scale, on a mass production basis. Okay. Now, because of this mass production, what happened was that the prices were lower. Because more now in less time, more goods are prepared. So the price of the goods came down. Okay. So prices of cars came down, prices of engineering goods came down. Okay. At the same time, the workers were now getting higher wages. So now they had some money in their pocket to spend. Okay. So these workers now started spending because now they had the money in their pocket. The economy had grown, so they started spending. See, the car production in the US rose from 2 million in 1919 to more than 5 million in 1929 in just 10 years because of mass production. Just in 10 years, from 2 million in 1990 per year, it went up to 5 million in 1929. Similarly, there was an increase in production of refrigerators, washing machines, radios, gramophone players, all through a system of hire purchase credit. So there was an increase in production of everything, all consumer durables, and at the same time, system of hire purchase was introduced in America. The hire purchase is now common here in India too now in this 21st century, but it was tried where in America in 1929, 1930. Okay, hire purchase means you don't have to buy a good by paying the whole price. Okay, you have to pay a certain amount and then the rest of the money you have to pay in installments. That's what we do now. Okay, we could now buy a house, we can buy a car, we can buy a two-wheeler, we can buy a fridge, we can buy an AC on installments. Okay, so similar thing was started, hire purchase schemes. Okay, so because of this, what happened? The demand for now the workers could buy. Now they had the money plus the hire purchase scheme was there. So now workers could buy refrigerators, they could buy washing machines. So all consumer durables, whichever they wanted. Now it became very easy for them to buy. Now they could even buy they could buy homes ownership on credit basis. Okay, pay a certain amount now and pay every month on EMI basis. So they could get now loans, housing loans. Okay, so the economy developed. The housing and consumer boom of the 1920s created the basis of prosperity in the US. Because of this boom, prosperity in US increased in the 1920s. Large investments were made in housing and household goods. Okay, now since large investments were made in housing, the housing companies needed people to work to construct houses. So employment increased, and as employment increased, income also increased. So there was a cycle. Okay, more the job, more to prepare manufacturing things, you need more employment. More employment means more income to the people. More income means now they have more money in their pockets. So more money in their pockets, they can go and buy things. And as they are buying things, more demand for those goods, and more demand for those goods means again more money flowing in the market. So that is how this cycle was going on. Okay. So in 1923, the US resumed exporting capital to the rest of the world. and it became the largest overseas lender. This imports and capital, okay, US was lending capital. This boosted the European economy, and the European economy recovery started to be the European economy started recovering, okay, for the next 6 years. But all this did last for a long time. By 1929, the world was plunged into a depression, and that is called the greatest depression ever had. Okay, so that was the Great Economic Depression which came in 1929. This Great Depression of 1929 began around 1929 and lasted till the mid of 1930. Okay, for nearly 8 to 10 months this depression lasted. Okay, during this period, most of the world it experienced huge decline in production, and as there was decline in production, there was decline in employment. Decline in employment means decline in incomes, and decline in income means decline in purchasing capacity, that resulting in decline in trade. Okay, so these are all interrelated. So because of this, the economic situation of the world declined. Okay. In general, agricultural regions and communities were the most affected. The worst affected were this agriculture and the agricultural region means the farmers and the villages. They suffered a lot because of this this depression. Because why? Because of the fall of agricultural prices. As there was a fall in agricultural prices, the farmers could not survive. Okay, they went into debts. Okay. See, the depression, what were the factors which caused the depression? Okay, there are a few factors which were the cause of this Great Depression. The first cause of the Great Depression was the agricultural overproduction. Okay, now what do you mean by agricultural overproduction? Means production of agricultural goods more than what was needed. Okay, that means supply of grains in the market was more than the demand for the grains. Now, why did this happen? Was that, as I told you before, already Canada, America, Australia, Russia had during the war had increased their capacity of producing wheat. Okay, so and with the war coming to an end, and the Eastern European countries again started producing wheat. So the market, in the European market, the cost of wheat came down. As the cost came down, the farmers could not survive because the cost of producing wheat was more than the cost of selling wheat. Okay. So second cause was in the mid 1920s, many countries financed their investment through loans from the US. Okay. Many countries, they were in debt because of the war, European countries. So what they had done, they had taken finance from US, from the America. But so they had taken loans. So it was easy to get loans from America at that time. But when the Americans saw that now the world is going on in a crisis, going in a depression, what they did was that they stopped giving loans. They called back the bank loans. Okay, so in the first half of 1928, US overseas loans amounted to over 1 billion, but a year later it was 1/4 of that amount. Okay, means they came down to 25%. So the countries that depend crucially on US loans, they face a very difficult task in defense and acute crisis. Okay. The withdrawal of US loans affected the world. In Europe, it led to the failure of some major banks because major banks in the Europe, they were taking loans from the US banks and they were giving loans to their customers. But now, since the US bank stopped giving loans, these banks could not further give loans to their customers. Okay, so these banks, they collapsed. And even the currency, the British currency, pound sterling, also collapsed. In Latin America and elsewhere, it intensified the slump in agriculture and raw material prices. Okay, the US attempt. What happened was that the US also attempted to protect its economy from this depression. There was a depression worldwide. Now the US government thought now we should protect our country from this depression. So what they did? They levied taxes, import duties, they increased the import duties, doubled the import duties, so that it was difficult for countries outside America to export to America, as America had doubled the import duties. Okay, so products from outside America were costing more. Naturally, American made products were cheaper because of the duties of the products coming from outside. So people were buying American goods. Why did America do this? The American government, because it wanted to protect its economy from the depression. And as a result, what happened? The countries outside America, they suffered more because now their products could not be sold in America. Okay, so now their market, America was a market for them. Now the market had collapsed. Now that the market was not there for them at all. So now what they do with the product? So again, it had a very bad effect on the world economy. The US was also the industrial country most severely affected by the depression. Okay, as the US was also affected because of depression. So with the falling prices, the US banks stopped giving loans in the domestic market also to their customers in US. Okay, they came down with their lending. Okay, and they called bank loans. So farms could not sell their harvest. Households were ruined. And business collapsed because banks were not giving loans, so businesses collapsed. As businesses collapsed, many lost their jobs. And already the cost of food grains was coming down, so everyone was suffering. So, facing with falling incomes, many households in US could not repay their loans. Now, as I told you before, because of the higher purchase scheme, many workers, many households in US had bought consumer durables, they had bought houses. Now, because of the slump, now they could not repay the loan. As they were not able to repay the loan, they had to give up their houses, they had to give up their loans, give up their durables, what they had bought. Okay? So, unemployment also had increased a lot. So there was a big problem in America also. And ultimately, because the US bank had given loan outside the America, they had given loan to the people in America for buying consumer durables, for buying houses. So, and now they were unable to recollect those loans. Okay, they were unable to recollect those loans. So what happened was that they were not able to repay to their depositors. As a result, many American banks also collapsed. Okay. The number of banks which were forced to close were in 1933. in 1933, over 4,000 banks had closed in America. Just imagine, in one year, by 1933, 4,000 banks closed. And between 1929 and 1932, that is just between 4 years, 1929 to 32, about 1,10,000 companies had collapsed. Just in 4 years, 1,10,000 companies collapsed. What effect on the economy it must have had? Okay, that's why it's called the Great Depression. By 1935, slowly this the economic depression started recovering gradually, slowly. But the effects of this Great Depression were felt all over the world, economically, in the economic field, politically, okay, in the minds of the people. It suffered this the Great Depression. Really, people all over the world suffered a lot. Okay, now let us see the effect of Great Depression on India. Okay, the Great Depression was started where? In Europe, but India was in Asia. But did it affect it? Yes, India was also affected by the Great Depression. See, if you look at the impact of the depression on India, we realize how integrated, how intermingled the global economy had become by the early 20th century. Means how countries were dependent on each other, how globalization had taken place. India had affected, that means globalization had taken place, because of which India is suffering now. Okay? The tremors of a crisis on one part of the world were felt on the other side of the world too. Okay? This affected the lives, the economies, and the societies everywhere on the other side of the world. See, in the 19th century, colonial India had become an exporter of agricultural goods. We saw that under the British government. British government was ruling India. Under this colonial government, we saw India was exporting raw materials and it was importing finished goods from Europe. Finished goods were imported to India from Europe and raw material was exported from India to Europe. Okay. Now, because of the depression, as the European countries felt depression, the export and import both came down to nearly 50% between 1928 and 1934. It came down to 50%. As international prices crashed, prices in India of wheat also came down. Okay, so between 1928 and 1934, wheat prices in India fell down by 50%. Okay, so now, naturally, who is going to suffer again over here? Again, the peasants and the farmers. They will be suffering more because wheat prices have gone down, 50% they have gone down. Means the cost of producing wheat is more compared to the cost of selling wheat. Okay, so the agricultural prices fell down, but the colonial government refused to reduce the revenue on the land. Means the poor farmers, the peasants, had to pay the same revenue to the government, though the prices had come down to 50%. Okay, so this created a big problem for the Indian farmers. For example, they have given an example of the jute producers of Bengal. They grew raw jute, which was then processed in factories and exported in the form of gunny bags. Okay, so in Bengal, jute was produced, it was processed in factories, and gunny bags were prepared, and these gunny bags were exported to Europe. Now, with the slashing coming down of exports of gunny bags, what happened? There was no, the European market had come down, so there was no market for gunny bags over there. Factories were closed in Europe, so the export of gunny bags came down. Okay, so the price of raw jute came down to 60%. Okay, means if jute producer is getting 100 rupees, instead of that he is going to get only 40 rupees. Okay, so peasants who had borrowed from the bank loans, who had borrowed loans, they were thinking that okay, they will spend a lot of money in producing more and more jute so that they will make money. Okay, so they had borrowed. Now they were in a crisis. Now how could they repay the loan? Okay, so they fell into debts. Thus the bank. This is how here they have given the 4 lines on how a Bengal jute growers lament. Okay, grow more jute, brothers, with the hope of greater crash. Means we grow more jute. Why? In the hope that we will get more money, more cash. But now the cost of producing jute and the loans which you have taken, now you will be plunged into debt. Because you have spent all the money you took from the bank, you got whatever you got the loan, you spent it in producing the jute. Now the crop is ready off the ground, but the trader who is just sitting with nothing to spend on it, he is now going to pay you just rupees 5 for amount. Okay, means he is going to pay you a very very small amount. Okay, he is going to pay you very very small amount. With that, you are not able to survive. That's what a jute grower in Bengal is lamenting. So, because of that, what happened? Because of the Great Depression, the Indian peasants, the indebtedness also increased. Okay, their loans increase, their misery, they become more debt in the loans. They use up their savings, what they did to pay off their loans. They use the savings, they mortgage land, and they sold whatever jewelry they had, whatever precious metal like gold they had to sell everything. In fact, in the depression, India was the country which exported more of precious gold because people were selling gold to survive. Okay, the famous economist John Maynard Keynes thought that Indian gold exports promoted global economic recovery. So much of precious gold was exported from India because, as you know, Indians are fond of gold jewelry. Okay, and that is from ancient times. Indians were. So what they did was the last resort for them to survive was selling of this gold jewelry, and so gold was been exported. Then a lot of gold in India, so gold was exported, and this helped the Europeans to, because we were the colonies of the Europeans, right? So it helped the Britons to recover from their economic losses. This certainly helped speed up Britain's recovery, but it didn't help anything for the Indian peasants. Indian peasants were more in indebtedness. Okay? Rural India was sitting with unrest at the time. The villagers, the farmers, small peasants were very having a very miserable life. And at that time, Mahatma Gandhi launched the civil disobedience movement, the height of the depression of 1931. This depression comparatively had lower effect on the urban Indian. The rural Indians suffered a lot because the prices of food grains had gone down, whereas the urban Indians, they didn't suffer much. Why? Because see, urban Indians, those people staying in the urban area mostly had a salaried job, and their salaries were fixed. As the price of food grains came down, price of food grains and all other commodities also came down. So when these prices came down, now they could get everything at a less rate. So in fact it was a beneficial thing for them. Now they could buy more. Okay, so now they could in fact save, because they had to pay now less for anything, they had to pay less for any goods they wanted. So the urban Indians did not suffer much. Okay, industrial development also grew during this part, because the Indian nationalist leaders, they demanded that government should increase tariff protection to industries. Means the government should protect the industries, Indian industries. So the Indian government extended tariff reduction. As a result, industries also developed. So that is what is the effect of the Great Depression, which had on the economy of the world as well as the economy of India. That's all on this lecture. Okay. Now, in the next lecture, we'll see the fourth unit of this chapter, rebuilding a world economy. The post-war era, means after the era, how we saw how people, the economy had declined, economy had collapsed. Now we will see how this economy was rebuilt. Okay, how the economy was rebuilt in the next